All right, hopefully the mic's working this time. Uh, should the mic should be working now? If anybody can confirm in comments. All right, so we'll just get this going because I do want to clip this and put it, just post it as a true video. Yeah, Mowgli, you're upset too. Yeah, me too, buddy. Look at my text. Oh boy. I did see this. So I saw the announcement that Bo Nix broke his ankle on his at the end of the game. So glad they won now. That's awesome. I was about to come on here and talk about how I was not this was the least mad I had been at the end of a playoff elimination game. And that makes me more mad. I'm gonna sit in that for a second. The fact that Bo Nix just broke his ankle and is out for the rest of the season, and now the AFC Championship game is quarterback by Jared Stidham, but he stayed in and threw the ball. I hope it was on the kneel down for the field goal or something, so that way it makes me feel a little bit better. The negative energy is about to rupture this light bulb in my room. Anyway, what I was originally going to say was I am not that upset about this elimination loss in comparison to other ones. Now that my microphone is working, I am just absolutely, I don't want to say fine. I guess void of anger, which I guess is different than other years. Where I guess I was angry and upset just because your season's over. That kind of sucks. The blood alcohol level is a little high, so we were emotionally reacting right after the game. I'm glad Kyle's in the chat here because I was about to talk about the fact that I got onto the boys group chat immediately and started talking about Brandon Beane and his future as with the Buffalo Bills. And I know the conversation is always going to go back to McDermott, whether or not he should be gone. So let's talk about the game quick. I felt like you had to come in this game. You had the clear pathway to win by not beating yourself, and then you beat yourself repeatedly. Like, what the fuck was happening at the end of that first half? It's ridiculous. That was ridiculous. I can't believe that happened. I cannot believe that occurred. Especially the Josh Allen fumble. A whole lot of shit you're just expecting to not go the way you want it to go at that point. But I think overall, the game, the defense played well, especially in the middle there when it comes to the down the stretch, the end of the game. You're going against Sean Payton, one of the best play callers out there. I do think that there was some plays where you could have played it better. It comes down to the fact you had two plays where two defensive starters went out and you scored touchdowns on those two plays as soon as they came out. Like, why is Darnell Savage cheating over as the cover two safety on the backside of the play when if he just stays home, that backside, a late opening crosser doesn't come open? Why is Dane Jackson fighting on a double move when you know they have to score a touchdown and you're in man coverage, off man coverage, and your job is to just not let them get over the top of you, especially because you have the one play. You have to come in from Trey White for one play and not let that happen. And you just guys came in, weren't ready to go. GM should get better depth at DB. I mean, if Maxwell Harrison plays this game, right? You have Trey White is not the starting DB, or you're rotating the two of them. Trey White goes down, Max Harrison comes in. Max Harrison goes down, Trey White comes in. So let's go over that because Brody's now in the chat. This is we were arguing over the GM stuff earlier. My thoughts on being as the GM is that we have to start with this. What is the job of your general manager, your football team? consistently. Like, what is the job of that guy for your football team? It is to build a roster that is capable of getting into the dance and going out and competing. Like, yes, your job is to win a Super Bowl, obviously, but you cannot control that. You can do what you can do and control as the GM is by putting together a roster capable of going on a run. And that is what he's done consistently. Now, whether or not some years it's because it's more Josh Allen reliant than not, I do think that is possible. And especially like this year was heavily Josh Allen reliant. But the fact is that you could be the Cincinnati Bengals, you could be the Baltimore Ravens, like teams that even when they lose key pieces to injuries or just from the fact that they're not well built overall, you're not making it to the playoffs in general. So I think that's the first bar you clear. So you don't fire a GM because you can't get over the hump in the playoffs. Because at that point, he's gotten you to the point where you could have won that game. You could have won that, should have won that game. You probably should have won next week and should be in the Super Bowl this season. It just comes down to execution on game day. You're not going to fire Brandon Beane because you had 5 turnovers in your game. Like, that's not his fault. He put the players out there that then scored 30 points on a vaunted Broncos defense and then made a bunch of stops in the middle of the game there, even when your offense was trying to hand them the game. So I think Brandon Beane is as a topic of who should be gone and who should be retained going into next season is not where I would point that towards. Like, you want to know, like, I think the best thing you can do as a GM is put together a core of the roster to get you to that point where you're excited or you think you can get into the dance compete every year, like I said, and then retain the right pieces and spend your money retaining there and then using whatever you can to then upgrade these accentuate pieces around that core to then try to get you over the hump and then rely on your coaching and your talent to show up there. So Brandon Beane has put together a core. That is his job, is to put together the core to make these runs. And then his next secondary job is to then add pieces around that you can then give off to your coaching staff to perform like this. You want to look at what he did this offseason. He made key re-signings. He signed Khalil Shakir at $15 million a year, which is nothing. With the cap going up and the amount that receivers are getting paid, the fact that who was your number one receiver this year, now whether or not that's the problem is a different question, is getting paid $15 million a year to be a number one receiver. That is pennies on the dollar. I do think the Keon Coleman pick was a miss. I would have said that from the beginning, even when they did draft him, I did say that. I do think that you allowed your quarterback to influence that a bit more. Now, you want to keep him in on the decisions. And it was always talked about with Keon Coleman that Josh Allen really liked him, and he absolutely loved the element of the contested catches there. And you can see it back when he had Diggs. Like, he loved that chemistry throw, the back shoulder, being able to throw to a guy who was covered, but he's covered, you're not fully covered. So I understand the desire to get that type of player with Coleman, but you had to look at the rest of his skill set and the lack thereof of athletic traits. Like, yeah, Diggs could do that because he had chemistry with Allen, but he also had other things in addition to that would help him out. Well, please leave the cookies alone. I'm getting more upset when I talk about it. So that I think that was a miss, and I think you looked to the wrong player to fill a need, and you allowed your quarterback to have too much influence there. I think for looking at everything else, resigning the players you did, adding Joey Bosa, who led the league in forced fumbles or was top 5 in forced fumbles and had impact plays for your team, especially for a team that suffered so many injuries. Like, his draft picks were good. I loved the Landon Jackson pick. The fact that he only played one game and then tore his ACL, can't hold that against him if he was too slow coming along to be starting. And then once he started to get ramping up, you can then be like, oh, cool, now we're going to get a guy that's going to impact your game. Then he's out for the year. And Oliver, out for the season. You had your good second round pick. I liked the pick, and I still do like the pick. Most of his picks he made this year. Maxwell Harrison. I was very enthused by that pick when it was made, and then as he played along the season, I was very happy with it. You look at TJ Sanders, had to play defensive end the majority of the season. Once he finally moved to D tackle, it started feeling like he was a bit more right and was making bigger plays, like the Cleveland game. He was making a lot bigger plays when he didn't have to play at the end. Deion Walker exceeded all of my expectations. Jackson Hawes, phenomenal pick. Opens up a lot more for your offense than any other pick you could have made at that spot, even a wide receiver. To be honest with you, at that 5th round pick, adding Jackson Hawes impacted your offense way more than any receiver you could have drafted in that spot. Now Chase Lunt, I do like the Jordan Hancock pick, but he's definitely not ready. I think they wanted to draft him and prep him to be like that hybrid safety dime, that corner type player, but that wasn't they didn't want him to be forced into playing into true safety as he was earlier on in the playoff run with the Jaguars game. So I think all the picks he made this year, it was a good draft. And we look back at the other drafts where he goes uh the James Cook, Terrell Bernard, there was I can't remember the other picks that were there, but it was like 4 or 5 picks that were impact players in your roster and or signed a second contract. Like he has shown the ability to draft, especially in those later rounds where yes, it's nice to hit on the earlier round picks, but you have more picks in the later rounds for a reason. You're filling out that roster. You're building that core, like we were talking about. Look at the players that are a part of that core. Khalil Shakir, James Cook was a second round pick. It wasn't a first round pick. You have players like Matt Milano, a fifth round pick. Taron Johnson, when he was still at a high level, like fifth round pick. Cole Bishop was a higher pick, but again, not like your day one stuff. Like he is able to draft outside of that first round. And even then, the first round picks he does grab. Maxwell Harrison looked promising this year. Gregory Rousseau. I can list a bunch of draft picks that I really like, and like you can go and nitpick and find the ones that didn't work. But even the players that like they are not living up to the draft status they had, you're still happy with the production. Like AJ Epinesa, how much is he going to want this upcoming offseason? Because I'm willing to pay him to be a depth rotational defensive end on this team. So we don't have to keep going and hunting for the big ticket piece there. You can try to draft that guy, or you can always have better depth for when injuries do hit you. Overall, I do think Brand Bean is a good GM. You cannot move off of him. When it comes to the coaching staff, I do think they showed growth. The injuries definitely plagued them this year. The defense was lacking high-end talent, and that was because we did just go through a transitional year last year where you had your top players, Trey White got hurt again. You had Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer gone. Matt Milano got hurt again. Now he's a bit slower. He's not the same. Your D tackles, Daquan Jones is now over the hill. And you just had a bunch of players that you were phasing out of your defense. You were hoping that they get replaced by either depth or by rookies. Now in your second year, there's still things you can add to it, but this year was definitely easily part of the reset that we were looking to do last year. The fact that we made it to the AFC Championship game last year and now the divisional round this year, and the fact that the playoff field wasn't filled with other quarterbacks that you really wanted to face, that's not going to you shouldn't have that accelerate where you want it to be. Like you are ahead of schedule, no matter what you think, because you have Josh Allen. I think the rebuild and the retool that they had to go through because of age and cap space is working better than anyone could have expected for the fact that we are as far along the playoffs as we are. So you go into next year, now you have your stable core. You have Maxwell Harrison coming back, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker in year 2. You can add another piece to that D tackle room, add another piece to the edge room with Landon Jackson coming back off injury. You have Cole Bishop not taking another step. You have pieces on your defense and at linebacker, Dorian Williams. You have the ability to add another one this year. You have guys who are going to continue to develop. You can keep adding to try to find top-end talent there. You're only going to build on from what this was last year. And then on offense, now you have your offensive line is solidified. You have good depth players. Alec Anderson came in and played well in the snaps he did. Now the snaps themselves were a little shaky, but I do think coming off Cole off the bench probably wasn't helping them. I do think that you have the building blocks. You've secured the core. Now you have the ability to now just keep building on and building on and building on. I think this is the floor of where the team is losing in the divisional round to a 1 seed with some ref fuckery against a good football team that was good in the clutch last year at home. You were on a short week. I'm not saying that this is not terrible, like heartbreaking, but I'm also saying that this isn't of fire everybody kind of thing. The closest thing I'll get to with that is the coaching staff, but I do think they adapted well enough to injuries and for the lack of talent they did have out there. And I do think I've never been on the train of fire Joe Brady. I do think there are some questionable calls, but also I do think that is where you can continue to grow. Like he's still a young coordinator in the NFL. He's only been in the NFL like 4 or 5 years. Like I do think he can continue to grow as a play caller. Same thing with Bobby Babich. McDermott is more of that CEO type player where he's built a culture and keeps guys there that want to be there. And you never hear anything dissenting coming out of the Bills locker room because you have that level of personality at the top. Like I'm not going to say fire McDermott because he's not a good enough defensive mind. That's why he has coordinators. Like why would I want to care about that? I think of him more as your John Harbaugh's, your Mike Tomlins, your CEO type coaches at this point. He had to be the other thing early on. We had to take over play calling, had Leslie Frazier there. That was when you had to maybe think about that more often. But I do think that he is doing well in his job of keeping guys' morales up. If the season could have went way off the rails if these injuries impacted people's morality, or you had no adjustments to make through the season. You now have a base to go off of. You don't, if you make wide sweeping changes, you go from a GM that has got you to the point where you're at, where you're now building up and ramping up to be more competitive in years, following, while Josh Allen is still in his prime. If you fire him, you can't trust that the GM you're going to bring in even likes the core that's in place, and then he wants to blow it up and bring his own guys in, and now all of a sudden you're back to square one. Same thing with the coaching staff. The coaching staff is familiar with these players, understands their strengths and weaknesses. Like, maybe you want to add some better assistants, and I'd even maybe entertain the McDermott firing, just because if you want a guy with a different path, different mindset to bring in. But I still think that having the guys in place to set that floor and allow Josh Allen to set your ceiling, and then keep adding other players that can match Josh Allen with the ceiling setting ability, is where you're going to want to move forward with it. So I think wide sweeping changes would be a mistake. It is an emotional response to an emotional game. I do think there are things you can address and get better at. There are pieces that need to go, pieces that need to come back. Shaq Thompson needs to be resigned 100%. Matt Milano, my favorite Bill of all time, can probably walk. I do think that maybe Brandon Cooks can be back as a depth receiver. You have a lot of things that you can do to tinker and retool with what's currently on the roster, and then you just make additions through free agency, make big additions to the draft, and then now you're having more pieces come in, and you're just improving where you're at. You have the floor. You're going to keep improving the ceiling. So, like I said, I've been a lot more upset in years past, where I thought the team was phenomenal, like 2 years ago when they lost to the Chiefs at home, and I was there in person, and I felt like this was the last year, even probably the year before that, when Diggs was still kind of being Diggs, or the 13 seconds ago, like all those games where you felt like the roster was at the peak of where they're going to be, and there's only way to go is down from there. That's where I was previously. Now I think we're at the point where we can ramp up after this. So that is how I feel about this. I'll probably post this up, where this is going live on YouTube anyway, so it'll just be up there. I'm going to dive more into some film. I'm going to just end the stream now because I'm tired and want to go continue enjoying some festivities with my wife. But after this, I'm going to keep diving into film. I've already been knocking out wide receivers, talking about linebackers. Go back and look at any other live streams I've done on this YouTube channel, or what we've tweeted out. You can see all that different stuff that I've been working on. You can go read that, and I definitely even specifically have stuff that's based around the Bills. So we'll keep moving on forward with that. I'm going to keep diving into draft stuff, and I'll hopefully have some more stuff posted up now, especially moving forward. So I'm going to end this here. So thanks for everybody that popped out. Sorry that the audio was fucked up in the first stream. I know I had spiked to 20 something viewers there, but we'll see where we go from here.